Hi everyone! Welcome to 15 Minutes in the Forest. I'm Jennifer Gagnon with the Forest Landowner Education Program at Virginia Tech, and today I am joining you from a privately owned woodland in Patrick County in Southwest Virginia. I have two special guests with me today. I have Ann Rogers, who is the owner of this woodland, and Bill Sweeney, who is a forester with the Virginia Department of Forestry. Today, Ann is going to take us on a hike around her property. She'll tell us a little bit about its history, some of her management goals, and she'll show us some of the unique natural features of the land. You all ready? All right, let's go.
Hi, welcome to the forest in Patrick County, Virginia. This is a 100-acre parcel under conservation with Virginia Department of Forestry, and it has a special conservation area composed of Carolina hemlocks, and that conservation area was identified by Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation back when we were working on the easement, and I am extraordinarily pleased that we were able to identify this special stand, which, as I understand, is one of only 3 in the Commonwealth of Virginia of these Carolina hemlocks. And I am very, very happy to know that we are protecting those special plant species. I am very interested in the plant diversity and animal diversity in this part of Virginia and on this property. I earned a chartered herbalist diploma from Dominion Herbal College in Canada in 2011, and I'm very, very interested in natural plant medicines. As it turns out, this property is covered in plants that can be used therapeutically. This property was at one time part of the Rocky Knob Recreation Area. It had been owned by the National Park Service and was part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. So in the 1960s, the National Park Service swapped this property for another property, and that's when this property went into private ownership, and that was back in the 60s. And it is covered in rocks, and I believe it's the same geologic system we have over in the gorge, in the Rockcastle Gorge. And one of the projects that I am planning to work on is to develop a rural historic district of properties on the eastern side of Route 8 that had been originally part of the Rockcastle Gorge community over on the west side of Route 8. What we see over here are the Rockcastle Gorge chimneys that are the very characteristic of what you see in the gorge.
One of the things that was really special about this property is the stand of Carolina hemlocks that Ann has on her property. And so this is a Carolina hemlock. One of the things that can help you determine this from an eastern hemlock is the needle arrangement. And so if you're looking at the branch or the twig, you'll see that the pattern of how the needles come out from the twig is what we call whorled, meaning that it comes out all the way around the branch, whereas hemlocks, the eastern hemlocks, are fairly flat. This is a whorled leaf arrangement, and it's pretty distinctive. It's easy to miss sometimes because in nature, nothing is ever exactly as it's supposed to be always. So the presence of these Carolina hemlocks, while being very special to Ann, is also special to the Department of Forestry, as whenever we can find specimens like this to protect, it's very important to us. And so this was a really good opportunity for us to get established with a landowner that has a stand like this, because these stands are very rare throughout the Appalachian Mountains. Hemlocks in the south are threatened by 2 insect species. Both of them are true bugs. One of them is the hemlock woolly adelgid, which is like an aphid. It's got a sucking mouth part that it attaches at the base of the needle and pulls sap from the branch that way. And so what we see here is old hemlock woolly adelgid ovisacs. An ovisac is basically a cottony cocoon that protects the adult, wherein she will lay eggs that will then hatch later on in the spring and form a new population of hemlock woolly adelgid. The way that hemlock woolly adelgids damage hemlocks is by causing a loss of vigor in the plant, causing a decline. Typically, the twig that's affected by the adelgid will stop producing new growth. And so you can see these needles are a little older. They're less vibrant than what a healthy needle would look like this time of year. And interestingly, hemlock woolly adelgid is parthenogenetic, meaning that it does not need a male to reproduce. And so each hemlock woolly adelgid that hatches from an ovisac is a female that will lay more eggs, and each individual female has the potential to lay up to 200 plus eggs per ovisac. So I mentioned 2 insect species, and luckily I'm not seeing the second one in this stand. It doesn't mean that it's not here, but it's not been easily discernible in the short amount of time that I've been up here today. The second insect is called elongate hemlock scale, and it is also, as I said earlier, a true bug, but it attaches on the needle itself. And so when we're looking for elongate hemlock scale, we're looking for discolored needles. So I was looking at this particular specimen, noticing a few yellowed needles on there, but I didn't see the scale. But what happens is the scale will feed on the leaf, causing the leaf to yellow, brown, and then drop. And so you end up with defoliation from the scale attack on the tree. So these hemlocks are really long-lived species. Hemlock is a slow grower anyway, and you see evidence of how long they can persist on the landscape when not under threat from insect invaders or other issues, in how tight the rings are. Everybody knows how to count rings, but we had one of our foresters actually count the rings on this particular tree. This tree fell across a trail and was cut, so it made it easy. But he aged this at 165 years old. And so the trees up on these rocky slopes tend to be as gnarled as the landscape from which they grow, and as tough as the people that settled this place.
Now we're standing in an Upland Meadow area that was created by the previous owner, and it's this extraordinarily beautiful area at the top of the mountain ridge here that has a direct view of Rock Castle, the Rock Castle area. And I decided to maintain this clearing for the visual effects, and that's why I keep it maintained.
And one of the additional benefits to having this high meadow is it provides a place for weeds to grow up and grasses, which are good habitat for both deer and for numerous other wildlife species, birds, mammals, what have you. The entire meadow is surrounded by mass-producing trees, meaning oaks and hickories that provide acorns for wildlife, and so it's good to have complexity in forest land because it increases the diversity of species, animal species that you see on the property. This is another species that we see up on these really rocky slopes. This is a table mountain pine. It's also a very long-lived species. This is a tree that is fire adapted, so it's really saw its heyday when Native Americans were burning regularly on the landscape. It needs fire. It's what we call serotinous, or at least the cone is serotinous. It needs that fire to open up. So we'll look at these cones here. We can see one that's closed up and then a couple that have opened up. So these being pyrophytic, meaning they like fire, need that fire in order to break the wax coat that's sealing them up and release the seed that's within. But these trees are really important to the landscape. They hold soil, they provide habitat all year long, and honestly, their disappearance nationally is considered a species of concern. It's not threatened or endangered yet, but it's pretty close. Here in Virginia, we call it a diminished species because we've all but eliminated fire on the landscape for management, though we're really trying to emphasize it a little bit more now because we can perform it safely through prescribed fire. Because there are so many species that benefit from fire, such as oaks, and then of course these table mountain pines.
Here are some sugar maple trees growing on this property that I have tapped, and I'm collecting sap to make maple syrup. And we just had a spell of 3 nights with freezing temperatures here, and it's followed by a non-freezing temperature during the daylight hours. And that alternation between freezing nights and warmer days is the penultimate time to collect maple sap. And as you can see here, this collection bag probably has a couple of quarts of sap in it. And I will light up a fire in my rocket stove and boil this. And I am studying, working with a Virginia Tech professor, Tom Hammond, and I recently got a diploma from Future Generations University in West Virginia. And so it's really interesting. You can study and read and talk and discuss and plan all you like, but until you actually get out here and do this and deal with drilling a hole in a tree and tapping it and doing that just right, don't tap it too far in. If you go too far in, you're not going to get sap. So it has to be perfect. And you're given the privilege of sitting and maintaining a beautiful fire and boiling. Very nice experience.
Well, thank you for spending 15 minutes in the forest with us. And thank you, Ann, and thank you, Bill, for being out here with me on this rather chilly morning. Please join us again in 2 weeks for another edition of 15 Minutes in the Forest. Have a good weekend.